Welcome back to Kids Learn.
Welcome back. We're glad to have y'all today, and we're excited just about today's lesson, and we also have a couple of announcements that we're excited to tell y'all about. So before we get started, we do want to announce this. So I know you can't see it well, but this will be posted on the Facebook page, on the website, all those good things for you to see soon. But coming up Saturday, August 29th, we are going to have a walk through the Bible experience for our kids here at the church and for everyone to be involved in. This is what's taking place of our week-long Bible school that we weren't able to do this year. So we need as many hands on deck as possible to help us with this. There's a lot of fun things going to be happening this day. So come experience the Bible, come to life this day. It's going to be from 9 to 3 p.m. And we're going to go through a bunch of different Bible stories and just really be able to experience what it was like to be there when those things happened in the Bible. So make sure you mark your calendars, and we'll be putting more information out about this soon, where you can go ahead and register your child to come and also sign up to volunteer. We need a lot of help for that day to make that happen and make it happen well. So of course we will be following guidelines as suggested to us, from our leaders. So we'll keep all that, and keep everybody informed with that as well. So, in that, one more announcement. We want you to stay tuned to the end of this video because Miss Jamie has an exciting announcement she's going to give us at the end today. So, let's go ahead and get into our Bible lesson for today, though, our Kids Learn. So, we want to start out. We're going to talk about 1 Timothy 4:12. Does that sound familiar to y'all? It should, because that verse, as you all know, is a verse that we have adopted in our children's and youth ministry as just a reminder that the Lord can use even the young people to do great and mighty things, that He can use young people to set an example, not just for those that are younger than them, but also for people that are older. I can't tell you how many times a younger person, in the way that they live their life and just things that they are choosing to do, has encouraged me to be a better Christian and to be a better follower of Christ. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. The scripture says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." And so Miss Jamie's going to read that out of our kids' Bible we use here at the church, the NIRV. It's just a little bit easier to understand. So we're going to have her read that, and then we're going to move on into our Bible story for today.
Alright, so 1 Timothy 4:12, so in the New Testament. Alright, so don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. Set an example for the believers in what you say and in how you live. Also, set an example in how you love and what you believe. Show the believers how to be pure.
So God can use young people to do that. And the Bible is full of stories, Miss Jamie, of how God used young people to do great and mighty things. And so today we're just going to talk about one of those, though. The boy we're going to talk about today, the Bible does not tell us what his name was. But even still, it's a story that we have all heard of many times. Very popular Bible story. So I want to see if y'all can guess. We're going to play a game and see if you can guess what Bible story we're going to be talking about today. So I have our basket, which is kind of part of the clue as well. And there's some clues in here. Michelle's going to pick them out and see what they are. And
So the basket is a clue?
the basket is part of the clue.
Okay.
What's that?
Fish it, fish it, fish it.
Fish. All right, so that's clue number 1. We think about Bible stories that have fish.
Okay. There's a lot of Bible stories
There
with
are.
fish.
There are.
Big food group. My favorites.
Me too. I love some bread. All right.
Yes.
So we have fish. Clue number 1. Clue number 2 is bread.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what number 3 is.
Oh, it's a kid.
It's a kid. Little boy. All right. So we have fish, bread, and a little boy with a basket. So do you know what Bible story we're going to be talking about today? Do you know, Miss Jamie?
Okay, so I'm trying to think like young people in the Bible. So David was pretty young. The Bible was the Old Testament. I don't remember anything like fish and bread with him though. He had the lines. So let's see. boy and he shared his lunch.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
The boy shares his lunch. That's what we're going to talk about today. So Miss Jamie, if you'll go ahead and while we're talking, just turn to the book of John.
Okay.
So it's in the Gospels in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Okay.
And we're going to be chapter 6, verses 5 through 13.
Okay.
So before Miss Jamie starts reading though, I want to give you a little bit of background story. So to just catch us up to where we're going to start at. So at this time in the Bible, in this story, there were a lot of people following Jesus. They had heard and seen miracles that he had been doing, and because of that, they wanted to follow Jesus. They wanted to hear more from him. They wanted to see more from him. So he'd been doing all these miracles, and it got people excited. So before Miss Jamie reads, though, think about the word miracle. Do you know what a miracle is? A miracle is something that only God can do. Alright? Something only God can do. Alright, we know in the Bible, he turned water into wine. He healed the blind so that they could see again. He brought dead people back to life. So this story today that Miss Jamie's going to read, it's a true story. It's from the Bible. Everything in the Bible is true. We're going to hear about a miracle that Jesus did that day. So Miss Jamie, if you'll go and start reading, and let's listen for the miracle, see if you can catch it.
So starting verse 5, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Jesus looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him. So he said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to put Philip to the test. He already knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months of pay wouldn't buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Another of his disciples spoke up. It was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He said, "Here's a boy with 5 small loaves of barley bread. He also has 2 small fish. But how far will that go in such a large crowd?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. The number of men among them was about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves and gave thanks. He handed out the bread to those who were seated. He gave them as much as they wanted, and he did the same with the fish. When all of them had enough to eat, Jesus spoke to his disciples. "Gather the leftover pieces," he said. "Don't waste anything." So they gathered what was left over from the 5 barley loaves. They filled 12 baskets, there's that basket, with the pieces left by those who had eaten.
That's right. So, guys, I just want you to think in your mind what 5,000 people look like. Okay, that's a lot of people. And in the Bible, when it describes those people, it says 5,000 men. So most likely there were more than 5,000 people there. There were also women and children there. So there could have been anywhere close to like 15,000 people there that day. That is a lot of people. Okay? And they were hungry. They needed food. And the disciples said, "Jesus, what are we going to do to feed these people?" And they said, "It's going to cost more than 8 months worth of pay to feed them. What are we going to do?" Well, then Andrew finds a little boy, and he had how many loaves of bread?
5.
5 loaves of bread. And how many fish?
2.
2 fish. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus told them to feed those, a lot of people, anywhere from 5 to 15,000, maybe more, maybe less, people with the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That's not enough to feed a family, much less that many people. But Jesus took the bread and he thanked God for it. He did the same with the fish. And then they began to tell the people to sit down, and they started handing the food out. And it says not only did they hand the food out, but they handed out and gave out as much as they wanted. Okay? And what happened at the end of the story? Did they run out of food?
No.
No.
They needed a basket.
That's right. They had 12 basketfuls of leftovers. So not only did they have enough to feed all those people, but they had leftovers. At the end, they had more than they started with. How awesome is that? That is a miracle. That is something only God can do. All right? So God did all those things, but what did it start with? It started with a little boy who was willing to share his lunch that day. All right? God used a little boy to feed a multitude of people, a lot of people. All right? So I want you to think about that. God can use you too. God can use all of us, but we have to be willing to let Him use us. I heard a preacher one time saying, so parents listen up to this, I thought it was a pretty cool perspective. They said, who do you think packed that little boy's lunch that day? His mom or dad maybe. And so it's just a reminder that parents, your role is important too, to make sure your children are prepared to be used by God. Make sure you're pouring into them. So it's just a really cool perspective that I thought I would share with y'all. So, but anyway, kids, I want you to remember God can use you the same way He used this little boy. You just have to be willing to let Him use you. Sometimes He may ask you to do something that may be a little uncomfortable, may be a little scary, all right? He may ask you to talk to somebody you may be afraid to talk to, or love someone, or maybe forgive someone for something they've done to you. And who knows what He'll ask you to do. But we just have to be willing. We have to ask Him so that we can hear Him. So now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Jamie for the Kids Do portion. We can talk a little bit more about how God can use us in this.
Okay. So the first thing, just think about what is it that you have that you can give to the Lord. First and foremost is our heart, right? Because we want Jesus to come live inside of us and basically take our life, take over our life so that He's living through us. But what do you have? Like you're saying, it could be something as simple as your lunch. I mean, God can use anything. He just needs your willingness. So second, search through the Word and see other examples. Like Ms. Kim said, there's lots of examples of God using children in the Bible. And they're powerful. Look and see if you can figure out how many there are even of those. And then memorize 1 Timothy 4:12. It's a good reminder to all of us that God can use anyone who is willing, no matter how old you are, and not just use you, but use you as an example to others as well, to inspire others. So there's also a surprise.
Here's the announcement.
Yes. So all right. So we've got 3 questions, right? 3 questions. And these 3 things that we've just talked about. So just go over them really quickly again. So what is something you can give to the Lord? Okay. 2, some examples of others. So let's say at least just one other example of a child in the Bible that's being used by God. And then memorizing 1 Timothy 4:12. So being able to come up and say that for us. So if you're coming to first service, come and find me. You come to second service, come and find Miss Kim. And the first kid that comes up and is able to do those 3 things, there's a prize.
There is a prize.
So,
all right, so make sure you work on that. And some of y'all have already memorized 1 Timothy 4:12, so you're already a little bit ahead.
yep.
So think about something in your own life that you can give to God or be used by God with a talent, something like that. 2, search the Word of God for at least one other child that was used by Him in the Bible. And 3, memorize 1 Timothy 4:12. And the first one to Miss Jamie or me on Sunday that has all those 3 things done and can give them to us, tell them to us, will get a prize.
Yep.
So we got 1 prize. So we'll see who gets to us first.
Yep. And does it correctly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
all right, guys, we hope you have a good week, and we will see you Sunday and then next week for kids.
yeah.
Bye, y'all.